Moving on to our next speaker, we have a graduate of Kalkaska High School and Aquinas College. Um, she is the founder of the organization Embracing Imperfections and is a professional mental health speaker. She advocates by telling her story and listening to those of others. She says that she wants to be a catalyst for change and for the stigmas attached to mental health, and that life is precious and too short as it is, and that we need to work together to find meaning in every day and elevate living to the state of grace that it deserves. So please help me welcome Shandy Longcore.
When you're about to deliver a speech, you might want to look up what headshot photo you sent and what necklace we're wearing, or you're going to end up a little awkward when you first start out. Do y'all see what just happened? And I did just tell my cousin over lunch that I love speaking, but I am not a fashionista. This part, like just getting ready, is the most uncomfortable part for me. I can do all the. I can get up here without box breathing, but it's getting ready. So anyway, all right, let's get organized here. Thank you all so much for having me. And thank you to our other speakers. That was awesome. I did enjoy slowing my heart rate down in that box breathing. That was amazing. My boys, when they were in elementary school, did pizza breathing, where you would breathe in the smell of the pizza and then blow, right? Because it's always hot, right? And then you blow on the pizza. You get it, right? So to add to the 100 list, right? All right, so have you ever found yourself doing ridiculous things just to get people's attention? I know I have. I definitely have. Growing up, I always wanted to be noticed, to be liked, especially when having a bad day. I would do some silly things so people would pay attention to me. When I was a kid, I let my best friend Becky dye my hair all sorts of crazy colors. I mean, all the colors in the rainbow. She ended up as a hairdresser, so I guess that worked out. When traveling, I got a tattoo on my ear. After a bad breakup, I don't know what you do, but I went skydiving. It was fun. I suggest it. And from the looks of it, these guys have done some pretty crazy, interesting things as well. Actually, I'm trying to remove the word crazy from my vocabulary, so forgive me. I would say these guys have done some wild things as well. I've done a lot of crazy, interesting things in my life to be noticed, but what I really wanted was to be liked. If it's okay with you, I'm going to share a story of something that I did to be noticed that's not quite so fun. But before I go there, I want to set the stage a little bit and tell you about my family. My mom, Sheila, the leader in our family, working her tail off from midnight nurse up to in charge of her hospital. My dad, Randy, that's how I got my name, by the way. SH from Sheila, Andy from Randy, you put it together. My dad, Randy, was the jack of all trades. He gets bored, so he's the potpourri guy that has a new hobby every week. He started out as a music teacher before owning the town hardware store. My brother, Jason, how many of you have an older brother? So you know. That's all I need to say about that. Just kidding. I grew up during a time when you let your kids go and play. You didn't worry where they were. It was either inside or outside. Get out, right? You didn't worry how long they were gone. You didn't care how long they were gone. You didn't worry who they were with. We answered to a dinner bell. It was amazing. It was pre-social media. As much as I enjoy my social media, it was pretty much pre-internet. And as you heard, I grew up in Kalkaska, just east of here. And in a small town, it's easy to want to keep some things a secret. And here's the secret I kept for over 25 years. See, in this picture, I'm 10 years old. And I want to draw your attention to the smiles in these pictures. It's proof that just because someone has a smile on their face, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a storm brewing inside of them. See, at this point, for whatever reason, I'm not feeling loved, even though, of course, I was loved. I'm not feeling pretty, and I'm likely experiencing an undetected mental health issue. I've always been more interested in forts and sports than in hair ties and fashion. But being a tomboy has stopped working for me. All I want now is to feel pretty. And instead of letting my best friend Becky change up my hair, I decide to do it myself. I want to make room for a wig. So I hack off all of my hair with a pair of scissors. And I mean all of my hair. I want my mom to see it. I want the wig. I want to be pretty. But she's a nurse and she's not home. My dad comes home instead and sees my hair, and we land ourselves in a horrible, horrible argument. He returned to work befuddled while I was left alone to ponder my next move. And unfortunately, this is where I got it all wrong. See, without thinking, without writing a note, without stopping my impulsive self, I go into the basement where we have a rifle and an unlock case. I take it out, I load it, and I point it directly at my chest. And at the very last second, I switch that rifle from my left to my right, thinking that's the side my heart is on. This is one of the most beautiful mistakes I could have ever made because it saved my life. I will spare you the trauma and the drama of the few hours following the gunshot wound, but let's just say that I'm beyond blessed that my mom, the nurse, came home from work early that day. I'm beyond blessed that I missed my heart, and I'm beyond blessed that I feel a higher power was at play. And also, I want to acknowledge right here in Northern Michigan, we have two healthcare systems, both Karkaska Memorial Health Center and Munson, right here locally, that physically saved my life. In that argument, you might be wondering, with my dad, in this moment, it no longer mattered. What mattered was that I survived. So fast forward, I wake up in the hospital after life-saving surgery, and I look at the faces, and they look back at me. And I know in this moment that I am so loved, so loved. And that having a different head of hair doesn't matter in the least. And just because you have a different head of hair, different family, different baggage, challenges, things seen and unseen, right? It doesn't matter in the least. What does matter is you. You are absolutely meant to live this life. You absolutely have purpose, even if you can't grasp those details yet. See, it was in this moment at the hospital when I woke up that I realized that I counted, even at 10 years old. I mattered. And I could have asked for help before I made my cry for help, right? The newspapers called it an accidental shooting. And because we didn't know how to talk about what really happened that day, we kept the truth a secret. Until I had a big, big moment of clarity, a calling, so to speak, to share my story and to let that secret out in hopes to ultimately prevent suicide in others and to tear down the stigma wall that surrounds mental health. See, that led me to quitting my coveted job downstate as a director of a premier fitness facility to share my story. And once I shared it, I realized I have to keep sharing it. And I've shared it with so many audiences. And I do this because I've learned that in our pain, we need a friend. See, studies show that when people share their truth or their struggle with someone else, they're less likely to harm themselves because they are not alone. And this is why I've launched the organization Embracing Imperfections. And I will speak to as many schools and companies and people as possible, and I would absolutely love to come to your school. See, friends, today, the main idea of my speaking time here is really to ask for help before you make a cry for help. And I'm also here to remind you that you, especially you student leaders that are here today, which is awesome, can make a difference. You can inspire someone else, and it does matter. See, I'm not sure if you're aware, but suicide is the second leading cause of death for 10 to 34-year-olds. Get this. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, chronic lung disease, and I'll probably, why not add COVID combined? Let that sink in. Wow. But here's the deal. I believe, you and me, I believe we can change that. And I believe my life was spared to get you this message. I want to give you a few insights from my life as I've lived it through a pretty unique lens, a beautiful lens, a lens of gratitude for sure. And at the end, I want to share with you one more important thing. So we're going to go through the idea of talking, Mental Health 101, and the power of one real quick. The first one is talking. And you might be thinking, you mean to tell me this lady came from downstate up north to tell me to talk? So cliche. Yeah, I did. Actually, I did. And the power, I think you just saw in our two previous speakers, the power in talking is endless. So be vulnerable with someone, right? It wasn't until I was a young adult and I put aside what were long-term prejudices against working with a professional listener, AKA a counselor or a therapist, that I went to see one. And let me just tell you, it's so much more than a box of Kleenexes and a couch, for sure. It was amazing. I look back and I wish I would have talked, right? Also, did you know in a moment of crisis, you can call or text 988, the suicide prevention hotline for you or a friend? What a great resource to open every day of the year. So talking. Mental Health 101. All right, so think back to COVID. Audience, help here. Just shout out, what are some of the things you did right away in the beginning of COVID that helped with your mental health? What did you do? Go ahead, shout them out. Get outside. Love it. Get outside. What? Exercise at home. You had one? No? Anyone? Get a dog. Amen. Get a dog. Cooking. Love it. So exercise, right? Journaling, music, being in nature, maybe FaceTiming your friend that you couldn't physically be with. But isn't it interesting that, have we gotten away from that already? I think it's critical that we do those things that set us up for mental health success on a general everyday basis. So critical, right? And so speaking of mental health, you should be super proud of your community for having really this summit today and having us speakers. Many communities are not willing to have these tough conversations. Can't even tell you how many schools said no thank you to me presenting. The We Fight group, they care about you. They want you to have tools. They want to open this conversation. And they want you to know that you are loved if life ever gets to be too much. Interestingly enough, if I ever have the opportunity to speak, this slide will be a part of every presentation I will ever give. And on the left, we have a scan of someone who's not depressed, of their brain. And on the right, we have a scan of the brain of someone who is. Can we just for a moment acknowledge and lower the stigma wall that there is a physical difference? There is a chemical imbalance happening right here. So why don't we start treating our mental health like we would treat our physical health, say a broken arm, right? Next, the power of one. After everything that happened when I was 10, I had so many people invest in me. My neighbors, my friends, family, coaches, pastor. It was amazing. My teachers, this was pre-Sign Up Genius. Somehow they organized this huge big Santa-like size bag of presents for me to open during my time at Munson. Not only did I get to open one every day, I got to open one after every physical therapy session trying to get my lung working again. I tell you what, at 10 years old, that was a big, big deal because that was a lot of pain and not fun. It was amazing to me that they did that in my community. Also, I had amazing people my Aunt Sally, I think, is listening online today. There weren't many moments, but there were some that happened that my parents would have to leave the hospital. I was never left alone because my Aunt Sally was there with me every minute. I'll never forget that. And her daughter's here today, my awesome cousin. And then I had things like this happen. I don't remember a thing about the ride home from the hospital, but I remember arriving to a banner that looked similar to this, and yet again, my BFF Becky's big bubble handprint writing, and it said, "Welcome home, Shandy." To a lot of people, that would just be a banner. To me, it was that everything was going to be okay because I had my best friend. So I chose the world for this slide, really because I think that we all have the ability to tilt the axis of the world for someone else. I think it's that powerful, that human connection. And I'm here today to encourage you to be that one for someone, for your school, for your community. It can be absolutely life-changing like it was for me. So I don't care, to put it bluntly, how old you are, your social status, your family status, what you have going on in life. You absolutely have the ability to change someone else's life. Could be small gestures or could be big, like it was for me. So my challenge to you all is to be like Becky, because in our pain, we need a friend. I find it interesting when mental health things happen, so many people run the other way. Run to them. And my favorite mantra is this: don't forget the power that you have. Don't forget the power that you have. So don't worry, there will be no test, but here's your answers to the 3 things that we went over: talking, mental health 101, and the power of one. And I love expanding on these when speaking at schools. And I know I'm going to run out of time, so I'll kind of start closing up. But I wanted to share with you that as a speaker on mental health, my job requires me to be honest. But the moment I live for is really when the people in the room choose to be honest too. And what I'm getting at is, if you're being transparent with yourself and you know and feel you are meant to live this life, you can find that feeling in you, even in your darkest moments. I know you can. And yeah, that purpose and your contributions to the world, probably not so clear yet, but you have that feeling of hope, right? Take a moment and digest, maybe breathe through that word. I think hope is with us right now. I think we're born with hope. And because I chose to lean on hope when I was that confused 10-year-old kid, I didn't die. Instead, I ended up living out a great high school and college career, both athletically, socially, emotionally, and academically. And it was awesome. I had crazy, amazing things happen, like homecoming queen, right? And then playing 2 college sports and landing an amazing career right out of college. And then meeting my now husband, Bill, and our twin boys, Brennan and Cameron. And I share this with you not to toot my own horn. No, not at all. But to give you a real life example of hope. I think hope is inside all of us. And if you ever have a time in your life where you lose that hope and your mind is playing tricks on you, trying to convince you that this world would be better off without you, please remember this moment right now. Let it put a permanent mark on your heart to remind you that you absolutely matter. You are absolutely meant to live this life. We need you here. Thank you.